All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. It has been a while since we've had a doubleheader, but we've got one upon us right now because it is Monaco weekend. I'm pumped about it. Brandon, how you feeling?
Also pumped. It's an exciting weekend. I really love the Monaco Grand Prix, and so it's a fun race to watch. And there's always a lot of anticipation built up for me personally getting to watch this race. So I'm excited.
I love the Monaco Grand Prix too. It was the first race I ever watched back in 2018, seeing Daniel Ricciardo win that race. And so it's special for me to get to watch that race every year and remind myself of another year of being a Formula One fan. But I think it's just such a unique track on the calendar. Obviously, it's the track where the most emphasis is put on qualifying, but even outside of the racing, the spectacle, the history, the location, I think all around, it's a great weekend when we're at Monaco.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just kind of like, I don't know what I feel like Las Vegas is trying to be. You know, um, I didn't actually say that, but it Las Vegas Grand Prix is trying to be the Monaco Grand Prix, but nothing can match the spectacle of Monaco. So
Yeah, the casinos of Vegas don't have the same elegance as the casinos of Monaco. Let's leave it at that. All right, we've got some predictions to make for the Monaco Grand Prix. Starting off hot, who is your podium pusher of the weekend?
my podium pusher of the weekend got to be Sergio Perez. I'm putting my faith behind Sergio. He's done well in Monaco in the past. He's won the race before. He's not coming off the best weekend, and we've seen him bounce back earlier in the season. I expect him to do it again. I think Sergio is going to have a solid weekend. I'm not saying he's going to win the race, but I think he'll have a solid weekend nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't think he has to win the race to get podium pusher of the weekend. I'll get with you behind that. I It's like 50-50 with Sergio Perez. He won the race 2 years ago. Last year, he maybe had his worst race of the season at Monaco. And I don't know, we're hitting that part of the season where not only does he fall apart usually around now, but it's also the European stretch, which is kind of where he falls apart too. So hoping that he has a good weekend. Obviously, he had a pretty rough time out in Imola last weekend, so hopefully this can be quite the turnaround for him. I don't think that's as bold of a prediction as mine, but I went for Logan Sargent as my podium pusher of the weekend. I don't know why I did this. I feel like the bar is pretty low for me to get this point. Like, if he makes Q2, I'm taking it immediately. That's my point. But I don't know. We had a rough time out in Monaco last year, but I do think there has been improvement from Logan Sargent this year. I think the results haven't always shown it, but I think the gap has been a little bit smaller to Alex. And so I think in his return to Monaco, I think Logan Sargent is going to be the podium pusher of the weekend.
That's crazy. I saw that on our notes before the podcast, and I was like, man, this is going to be a good episode. But yeah, I think, you're right. The bar is on the ground for Logan. And, there's very little situations where him making it into Q2 would not make him podium pusher of the weekend. For example, if 5 cars crashed out in Q1 and Logan set no time, maybe he wouldn't be podium pusher of the weekend in that Q2 appearance. But, we'll see what happens.
We didn't set a time in qualifying last week, so if he sets one this week, you could say that's quite the improvement. So we'll see what happens. Luckily, around Monaco, you don't really have anywhere you could get your track time deleted unless you hop a chicane. But we'll have to see. Who is your back marker of the weekend this time out?
Interestingly enough, my back marker of the weekend is the entire Williams team. Bad weekend in Imola turned even worse. Their car just is not, we talked about it a lot last week or in the previous episode, but I don't think their car is kind of where they wanted it to be right now. And Monaco is a track that really, really punishes mistakes. And unfortunately, Logan Sargent is prone to those. And so I'm expecting a bad weekend from Williams as a whole. But we'll see what happens. I mean, anything can happen in Formula One, which makes it exciting. But I just don't expect Williams to bounce back. This season it seems like they've just hit roadblock after roadblock, and I hope they're more successful in the seasons to come. But I don't expect this to be a fun weekend for them.
I don't want to let Alex Albon off the hook too quickly here. He's been known to chuck that Williams into the wall this year before, so I think,
fair enough.
Both drivers have been at fault in that area. I think it'll be an interesting weekend for Williams for sure. Like you mentioned in our last podcast, we talked about how they moved away from being super fast in a straight line to have a more balanced car. So you could say that this is the first test of if their chassis is going in the right direction of being more stable in the slow speed corners. And so, yeah, it probably won't be a great weekend for them just because the general pace of their car is not that quick, but it could be a revealing weekend for Williams and maybe even a weekend that can help them get the car going in the right direction for future races and future seasons.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is an important weekend for them. And, even if they roll in, they have a clean weekend and Alex and Logan are finishing anywhere from like P14 to P20 in the race. It's like driving 78 laps in a Formula One car around Monaco and not making a mistake could do, amazing things for, I'm thinking of Logan right now, for Logan's confidence. I mean, if he's able to finish the race, cleanly, have a clean weekend, qualify, P14, P15, and then he comes home in around that area without crashing the car, having clean pit stops. I mean, like I just said, Monaco punishes mistakes quite heavily. So, I mean, I think that could do wonders for his confidence, and I think that's what the target should be for them. It's just a clean weekend.
Well, we just guaranteed a Logan Sargent crash in FP1. Our combined efforts have led to that happening, so we apologize to any Logan Sargent fan for what we have just conjured up in the atmosphere. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but maybe you're hoping it does so you can get your point. I will say there is a scenario where both of us can get our points. I can get my podium pusher, and you can still get your back marker of the weekend. I'll leave that possibility out there for us to discuss should it come to it. But there is a situation where that happens, so I won't take it off the table. My back marker of the weekend, I have gone for Daniel Ricciardo. I changed it from what's on the sheet, and I was just thinking about it, and I didn't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's that time of season where you'll get half of the Formula One fan base who is like, remember when Daniel Ricciardo was so good at Monaco? He's going to do it again. He's going to make Q3. He's going to do awesome. And then he's going to flop, and it's not going to be good. And we saw it when he was at McLaren. And unfortunately, I think it's going to happen again. I think his only saving grace could be Monaco maybe doesn't suit Yuki Tsunoda and his driving style all that much, and so he won't have as high of a benchmark to meet as he has in races past. But I worry that the outside pressure that the fan base heaps on Daniel Ricciardo when they see him diving into the Red Bull pool on Instagram 30 times before the race starts this weekend, that he won't be able to live up to that, and it will be seen as a pretty poor weekend from him no matter what.
They're hard words to hear, but I think it's a possibility for sure. And but I will say I think Daniel loves this track. He enjoys racing on it. He has a lot of good moments in Monaco. Obviously the win. He very nearly won in 2016. Maybe that's not a good memory for him, but I mean, it was a solid weekend overall, you could say. But anyway, I think that's a real possibility. It'd be unfortunate to see, but yeah, anything can happen in Formula One. So we always have hope. That's for sure.
For anyone who was wondering, I did have Lance Stroll down on the sheet, and that would have been a guaranteed point. He is going to get knocked out in Q1 and will hit the wall at some point this weekend, but I gave up my point for the sake of an interesting conversation. So I'm a man of the people. Who is your prediction for pole position at the Monaco Grand Prix?
I have to like Red Bull for this weekend. They've dominated Monaco in recent years, and I think Max has got got one more solid pole to win weekend in him. I'm not saying he's going to only have one for the rest of the season, but I think Max is going to get pole. His qualifying lap last year around Monaco is one of the best qualifying laps I think I've ever watched. And, if he can do that around Monaco again, there's nobody that can stop him. So
that Monaco lap from Max Verstappen last year was insane. But I've gone for Lando Norris at pole position this weekend. I don't know. Maybe I'm just on the Lando Norris hype train. Maybe I just saw that McLaren livery and said that thing simply has to be on the front row this weekend. But I think those McLaren updates have been working very well. I think Lando Norris, I think he's good around Monaco. We've seen him get a podium there in the past in a special livery before. So I don't know. I'm feeling the vibes around Lando Norris this weekend, and I think he's going to end up on pole.
Yeah, I think Lando's going to be in the mix, and I think there's no way that McLaren doesn't do well this weekend. The updates have been working great. Oscar had a solid weekend last weekend. Lando had a solid weekend he's had a couple solid weekends in a row, and I think there's no way that the McLaren doesn't do well. I think Lando will certainly be in the mix for the pole. But don't count Oscar out. I think he's got something to prove, and I think we're going to see some big results from Oscar at some point this season. I just don't know when they're coming.
Yeah, I think Oscar Piastri is definitely a great shout. He out-qualified Lando Norris last week before he got the penalty. That was his strength last year. Towards the end of the season, he out-qualified Lando on multiple occasions. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between the track style of Imola and Monaco. So, yeah, I think Oscar Piastri is definitely a good shout, just not the shout I gave this weekend. Who do you have in third position for the Monaco Grand Prix?
Third position for the Monaco Grand Prix, kind of following my podium pusher of the weekend prediction. I've got Sergio Perez in third place. This is my version of a fantastic weekend from Sergio. I think he's going to bounce back, and for him, I think that's a podium spot in Monaco.
Man, it's just tough for me to see Sergio Perez podiums from here on out with all these teams being, if they're actually as close as they are at the front, like if these Ferrari upgrades continue to show promise and McLaren continues to be strong. Obviously, there's this part of me that has seen so much Red Bull dominance over the past 2 seasons that I'm like hesitant to say that these cars really are equal at the front of the field. But should the cars actually be that close, it's hard for me to see Sergio Perez podiums, but who knows? I agree. I think if he brings home a third place, even if that ends up being behind Max Verstappen, I think that's a solid weekend for him. I think he would take it. I've gone for Max Verstappen in third place. Maybe that gives away who I'm going with at the front of the field. But Max came out today and said he thinks it's going to be a tough weekend for Red Bull. That could either mean it is going to be a tough weekend or he's going to win by 35 seconds around Monaco. So it could go either way. I'm going to say that it might be a tough weekend for Red Bull. Past 2 weekends, it's just looked like that car has been difficult to get the setup where they want. And obviously with, having the car set up where you want it to be, that car being absolutely stuck to the ground around the streets of Monaco is so extremely important. I worry that Red Bull might be a little bit off the pace this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. And, I think the gap is definitely closing. We've seen that, but it's just hard for me. It's really hard for me to pull away from the Max Verstappen and Monaco dominance picture. But we'll see. I think the podium is up for grabs this weekend. That's for sure. So I think we can see Max Verstappen P3.
I think the Red Bulls will, at least Max, will definitely be helped by how important qualifying is, because I think he will out-qualify where that car should be no matter what. I think we saw that last weekend, but we've seen him do that for a while, and I have full confidence that he'll continue to do that. So I think that will be their saving grace this weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, P2, who you got?
P2, I have Lando Norris. we just talked about it. I think the McLaren is, going extremely well right now, and their upgrades are working. And I think Lando is driving that car so well. And, I think his focus and has improved a lot. And focus is very important in Monaco. So I've got Lando in P2. I think it'll be another solid weekend for him.
I agree with you. I've also put Lando Norris in P2. Obviously, you heard me put him on pole, but who knows? Maybe for once we're going to see the person who doesn't qualify on pole win the race, So I'm going for Lando Norris P2. I think it will be an interesting race at the front. I think if those cars are evenly matched, then we'll see, an interesting strategy, maybe with the safety car thrown in there. We'll see an undercut work because of how close the car's pace are. Maybe we'll see an overcut work because a car gets stuck in traffic. I know people say that Monaco race is boring, but there's a lot of things that can happen, especially if you have 6 cars in similar pace at the front of the field. So all that being said, Lando Norris will not win the race from pole. He will finish second.
That would be crazy because that hasn't happened in a while. But like you said, Monaco's kind of crazy, especially when the cars are close to each other. There's a lot of strategy involved, more so than I think at other tracks, which is pretty neat. Yeah. So P1 is next. And I bet you guessed who I have as P1. I'm going for a double Red Bull podium, Max Verstappen, to win from pole. I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, a safe prediction, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking a lot about last year, and I think Max is going to do it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think if he qualifies on pole, there's no shot Max Verstappen is letting anyone by him, and that car could be running on 3 wheels, and he's going to absolutely wring the neck out of that thing. So should your first prediction come true, I'm sure your second prediction for Max Verstappen will also come true, because if he drives away from the flag in first place, nobody is getting by Max Verstappen unless something absolutely crazy happens. And even then, Max is the kind of guy who will be the person to send it up the inside, coming out of the tunnel at Monaco. So, yeah, I think Max Verstappen first place is a good shout. But I have gone for Charles Leclerc in first place. I am believing in the Ferrari upgrades. They're bringing more updates to the Monaco Grand Prix, bringing a high downforce rear wing that is supposed to bring them some extra pace. And I'm going to jump all in and say it's going to work. I think he's going to break the Monaco curse. He's good at Monaco. I think sometimes people forget that he has had pace around this track before. It has performed well, and it just never seems to work out. But this year is the year he's going to break the curse. He is going to finish in first place, and Charles Leclerc will win his home Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say that seems like a bold prediction, but I think it's definitely possible. I mean, he has had good showings around Monaco before. I mean, obviously, every single one of them has kind of been derailed by one thing or another. But yeah, I think it's definitely possible. And I think it would be really, really cool to watch. I mean, they talk a lot about how his bus route for like school growing up was on a portion of the Grand Prix circuit. I mean, how cool would that be to win that race for him? And so I think that would be awesome to watch. And I'm sure he has a lot of family and friends there, which is also really, really cool to get to see happen. So I think it's definitely a possibility, and that would be amazing to watch. So
it'll all come down to Saturday, which also is a good sign for Charles Leclerc because he is a great qualifier. So I have hope in Charles Leclerc performing well this weekend. That's why I predicted him to be my winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. We like to make some bold predictions at the end of these podcasts just for the heck of it to see how much we really know wheel. So what are your 2 bold predictions for the Monaco Grand Prix?
My 2 bold predictions. So we've got first one, Aston Martin scores less than 5 points. They didn't have a great weekend last weekend. The car does not seem to be trending in the right direction. Maybe not necessarily getting worse, but everybody else is getting better. They don't seem to be doing anything about that. So I'm saying they score a total of 5 points or less this weekend. I fully expect Lance Stroll to crash at some point, as we have already discussed. And unfortunately, I don't think Fernando is going to have enough to get that car where it needs to be around Monaco. So we'll see, but less than 5 points for Aston Martin. Now, on the flip side of that, I've got Red Bull scoring 35 points or more, which I think is a realistic prediction, especially if either Max or Sergio wins with the fastest lap. That means the other driver only has to get 9 points. So I think it's a real possibility, but, a crash in qualifying could completely derail.
Yeah, 35 is a steep total. It means you're saying that one of them is going to win the race because no other point total adds up to 35. Best you got is P2 and P3, which is only 33 points total. So you're going all the way in saying a Red Bull win is going to happen. All right, I'll take it. That's a whole lot of eggs in one basket. Your first prediction might as well say Fernando Alonso scores less than 5 points total. I could see a world where Fernando somehow sneaks that car into P6 or P7. But I mean, it would take everything out of him to get that done. And so I'm hoping that we see something magical from Fernando in qualifying. But I agree. I don't think that team or that car is moving in the right direction. And we've seen it from the data. They've fallen behind RB in a lot of qualifying and race pace scenarios. So that's definitely worrying for that team. And I think that is a good prediction for sure. My predictions, first one is that there will be 2 or more red flags across free practice and qualifying. So I'm taking the race out of this. Red flag in the race does not count, but the 3 free practice sessions and qualifying on Saturday, I think we'll see some cars bin it, put it into the wall, and there will be at least 2 red flags across Friday and Saturday. My second prediction is that the gap to the lead in both the drivers and the constructor standings will decrease this weekend. So I think Max Verstappen is going to lose some points to the drivers behind him, and I also think Red Bull will not score the most points in Monaco. So those are some pretty bold predictions, I feel like, but they're also predictions that I could see coming true.
Yeah, I think those are great predictions. I feel like that's right on the line of being like way too bold. Like whoa, that'll never happen. But it pushes the envelope. I like those predictions. Maybe I should have done a little bit more math before making my predictions, but that's okay. We're going all in on the Red Bull weekend.
I was doing the math while you were talking in my head, and then I could see your face as I was saying it, and I was like, I don't think he added this up before he said it. But
I mean, I did briefly. I mean, the math that I explained, 26 plus 9, I did that math, but I mean, we'll see. That'll be good.
I mean, you give yourself room that it doesn't have to be a double podium. You could take a Sergio Perez P4 or P5 and still get it. So you'd be okay. Yeah. So you'll be all right. All right, before I ask you your final thoughts, I'm going to put you on the spot for one thing. Rate the McLaren livery on a scale of 1 to 10.
11. Easy. I love that thing. That's the best looking race car I've seen in a while. And I'm excited about it. It's a good looking race car, and I hope that it gets a podium so that it can be remembered.
It absolutely looks incredible. McLaren, it's always a hit with their special liveries. They've done the Gulf liveries at Monaco in the past. They did the Triple Crown last year that looked incredible. They had the Chrome Silverstone livery last year that looked incredible. They never miss with their special liveries, and this is another one that looks incredible. They released the drivers' helmets. Oh, they look so good. Lando Norris with that chrome. It just looks incredible. Man, the design team over at McLaren, they have been cooking.
It does, and I'm excited to get to see that car on track. We'll see. Hopefully, we can get a little mini figure of the car in that livery at some point in our hands. But
I'm sure they'll be selling them in Austin for $245, so we can pick one up then.
Perfect. Can't wait.
Might be a little out of the budget. All right, what are your parting podium thoughts before we leave these lovely people?
Parting podium thoughts, man. It is Monaco weekend. It's exciting. Everything is in play on the racetrack and with our predictions. So I'm excited. It's going to be a great weekend and just looking forward to it.
Yep, it is going to be a great weekend for sure. My parting podium thoughts is there's some rain forecast on Friday. So maybe we see that spread over into a Saturday, into a Sunday. Who knows? Maybe spice some things up. You know, had a little bit of rain at the ending of the Grand Prix last year. Maybe we see it again. So got the fingers crossed that the rain sticks around during the weekend.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I'm hoping for it. Spicing things up, get a Daniel Ricciardo win. One more, jumping into the RB pools this time.
He's leading with 5 laps left. They're like, quick, repaint the logo. Quick. I don't think that'll happen. That's okay. Well, I mean, he's a Red Bull driver on loan anyways.
Yeah,
we'll let him jump in the pool. He'll be fine.
He'll be back in the Red Bull pool.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. As always, we are so thankful for each and every one of you guys who choose to let us just continue talking in your ears about the sport we love so dearly. You can follow us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us there. Feel free to leave us a 5-star review if you do enjoy. As always, we will see you guys in the next one. See ya.
Peace.